Hi everyone, welcome to the last academic sessions of 2021. I'm William Surya, representing the Aleph Academy Committee to welcome you all into this space and community of open learning and knowledge sharing. Today, as you can tell from the event title, we'll be sharing, we'll be discussing, we'll be unveiling, we'll be breaking it down, everything under the sun about the design system. It is very huge topic nowadays. I have my speaking companion with me, Gerald. How are you doing? For the audience out there, I think they might be curious to know a little bit more about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about you?
Hey, hi William. Thanks for that awesome introduction. Hi everyone. I'm Gerald, one of the associate design director in Aleph, along with my buddy here, William. I've been doing design system now for 3 years. I've been in the industry for quite some time now as well. Worked on digital payments, financial banking, and etc. Always been passionate about media design and product design and how it has been evolved over the years. Work hard, work smarter. That was always been my motto. With that in mind, the reason I've been into the design system makes everything faster, organized, and efficient. That is what I call work smarter. So with this one, we're going to be diving into design system. We're about to talk about the base foundation, fundamentals, and basic know-hows. So yeah, hope you guys tune in until the end.
Thanks, Gerald. I really like the part where you said work smarter. I think it really rings true. I've also been spending my time for the past decade in the design industry, starting from being a hands-on designer to being a design lead, leading multiple teams and working on various projects on different sectors of industry, from financial banking to commercial to education, etc. And I can't help myself but to feel really excited about seeing how the digital product landscape has been greatly transformed over the past 10 years, I would say, to the state of today. So we wouldn't know, the topic of design system might expire or might be outdated as we progress, right? But we believe the principles of it might stay for a little bit. And the momentum is still here right now. So that is the right time for us to discuss about it. Now, we know all of you come from different backgrounds with different levels of understanding, different levels of familiarity of design system as well. And the topic about design system is very huge and continuously expanding, right? So in fact, we have curated the content of the sessions for you, made with heart, of course, so that it can appeal to everybody, be it designers or non-designers, be it somebody who are new or somebody at the advanced level. The way we approach it is by sending a survey out to ask you to drop us, questions and the aspect of interest, and this is what we have got so far. Thanks to the responders. If you can go to the next slide, we have got such an overwhelming response, and insights that we craft around the content with. And a lot of people are leaning towards the stage of designing and building, but we've also got people who are really curious about learning it from the start. So, Gerald, we've got all these questions, right, floating around, from asking people how to name, how to make it simple, how to measure the success. Where do you think we should start? Why not you start sharing the idea of design system to especially to the audience who are new to this, right, so that they can have a little bit of context of what we are talking about today.
Yeah, sure, William. So all right, in a nutshell, design system is the talk of the town nowadays. The demand is getting bigger and bigger. Components, patterns, style guides, content, interaction, and whatnot, all in one unified design system. So what is design system? So if you try to search online, you can find a lot of varying definition. If you ask me about the design system definition, I would say it's a series of a collection of elements that can be combined and reused in a product by the whole team. A design system gets created in collaboration with an entire team, which consists of engineers, designers, product managers, etc. They come together as a kind of like a committee to work on it. Colors, logos, headers, forms, codes, etc. and attempt to come up with some consensus about how things to be designed, coded, and presented and talked about. So it is also the single source of truth for the whole entire product design.
And Gerald, and nowadays, right, if we look at the landscape, there is a lot of design system out there, where we can all reference, study, observe. For example, if you can look at the screenshot over there, Adobe actually called their design system Spectrum. Quite a fancy name, I would say. IBM with carbon design, Google with material design, and so much more that you can find out there. Some of them are even, open source, which means it's publicly available out there. You can actually download the package and access it. Some of them are also contributed by a community of design system, for example, and designs. So that's just to name a few of examples out there.
So yeah, so this is some of the visual sample of typical how design system will look like. In case of some of you are new or might be wondering. So this is some of it. And another one here is some of the few tokens of UI patterns. So wondering what token is all about. Design tokens are all the values needed to construct and maintain a design system. So that includes spacing, color, typography, stylings, and animation, etc. And here are some of the visual sample of typical design system components. And then we go to when and why do we need a design system? So I'll take this one. Design systems are designed to help teams build better products and services faster by making them design reusable and scalable. This is achieved by providing teams with a collection of reusable integrated components that are defined by clear standards and best practices. What do you think, William?
Since you're answering the first one already, maybe I'll take the second ones. Do we have to build a design system at any projects? Interesting. I would say that, almost every project might require a design system at maybe different levels, although different factors might come into play when deciding how advanced you want the design system to be, right? There are a lot of factors, right? Depending on the scale of the project, depending on the time allocated to it, depending on the investment from the business, right? But one of the principles about design system that, we need to hold on to is a design system helps to create a design standard that can help promote the consistency across the screen designs or across the product. So I think this kind of mindset or this kind of principles also applies the same way for our engineering partner as well. So yeah.
Nice one. So question that I'm hearing often. So is design system only for design or designers? There is a design word there, but it doesn't mean it's purely just for design. It's more than just component library actually. As mentioned in the previous slide, design system is a collection of documentation, design, and codes. So it means it's also a mix of individual experts like researchers, content, designer, UI and UX, engineers, and even project managers that creates the whole system. So there are a few benefits of having a design system, right? So one is promoting consistency. Building a design system begins with classifying all the visual components with the product. This helps in highlighting the biggest inconsistencies within the product and helps the team decide the product relevant and mostly commonly used elements and components. So consistency design is the most crucial design principle actually. And other one is better communication. For the team involved in product development, open source design systems are often referred to as a single source of truth. It helps the team to plan, develop, and maintain the product quality. And clarity for developers. With the design system in place, developers have a clear vision of how to build the required design system components while maintaining the unified styles. Then for iterate faster, by implementing a design system, teams can iterate a lot faster, like really a lot faster. You can release new design with lesser resources in small chunks and with shorter feedback loops. It also helps you to stay organized and up to date with all the design changes in your team mix. Then last one will be the leverage each other's work. So operating at scale and improving efficiency and consistency are the main advantages of using and maintaining a design system. Since you are using components in the design system, the time and effort spent on building one really pays off in the long run. So your design and development team can just tweak existing products, enhance an experience on focusing on building other products.
That's a very concise introduction about design system, Gerald. Aside to what you are describing just now, right, if I can add a few words to it. So I think design system for me, right, is kind of like the beating heart of the products that we are designing. And this so-called centralized library provides, as you mentioned, the single source of truth for design and development in a more systematic way, but we have to be fluid in certain way as well. And all of this holds the entire platforms together through a set of standardizations, be it from process perspective or be it from an output perspective. So that's my 2 cents about it.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with you. Right? So the fundamental purpose of a design system is to facilitate the work of the teams. So question, William, what would be the first thing to put inside the design system, or rather, how do we start?
All right. Now we are jumping into one of my favorite topics already in the design system, which is to set up a process and a culture within the team. I would say start with having confidence in the process, like that you have set up with the team. I mean, that's one of the advice that I can give, but don't 100% trust it, because there will never be a right process, 100% right process in the beginning until we gain more and more feedback. So if you can see from the diagrams, right, this is typically how a design system would have to go through. Design system team will have to go through, in terms of the process. If we are building it from zero, right, it doesn't necessarily have to be in such order, but it is always recommended to start from research, because that helps bring more clarity onto the directions that the team will be heading to. From there onwards, right, we might want to look at the strategy of engaging the stakeholder already, selling them the idea and the value, moving to the stage of designing, building, and validating it or testing it, which we will cover in depth in the later part. In between these steps, we might also need to define the team process on the collaboration part, getting feedbacks and making iterations. Finally, we also need to, again, validate it and continue to maintain and uphold the principles for sustainability purposes. If the team is faced with roadblocks, always go back to where you started, which is the research. All right. So if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, so for this one, how do we decide what's best for the design system? What goes before designing the design system? I mean, for me, is the research and planning. We do want to understand and know all the information and requirements before we start on building the design system. William, can you take us on the state of research and planning?
Yep, for sure. Before rushing into designing the design system, as I mentioned, it is very crucial to start your research. Research starts from understanding who you are designing it for, who will it serve. We can start from running primary research there are a few methodologies for primary research, right? By conducting users interview or running a discovery workshop, with the designers or even developers as well, just to basically understand how they interact with the design elements during the design and development stage. what are their major pain points, you know, what are the visions of the product. So list down all the questions that you want to get answers from the research, right? And the idea is to start, again, building relationship with the users of the design system. Use design thinking method in this, you know, this will help set up a base that will bring a lot more contextual value to the team. Aside from primary research, another method that we can consider is called desk research or secondary research. This is also equally important. We can start with doing competitor analysis, for example, looking at how both competitors and non-competitors are building their design system. There are a lot of success stories out there that you can read online, you can study, you can observe, download the open source design component library, study the differences, make a note of the pro and cons as well, learn behind every decisions that they take for their products. The idea behind desk research is to give the design system team a visibility on the industry standards and the benchmark that the team is setting towards. This will help the team a lot when we are doing effort estimations, when we are doing goal planning as well.
All right. So it's interesting when you talk about understanding the users. It's about the people, right? So design system is culturally transforming the way that the team works in a way that needs to be inclusive from business, design, technology, clients. That's why we are also inviting two special guests. So we have Wu and Asri with us today. Hi both of you. Wu and Asri, welcome to the Academy. Do you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Hi guys. Hi everyone. Good evening. I'm Wu. Today I'll be kind of like represent the engineers, to talk about the journey of design system approach. I myself has been a mobile engineer for 5 years in focusing on mobile app developments, and yeah, it's been fortunate to be able to implement design systems with Gerald. Yep, happy to share my thoughts later. Thanks. Over to you, Ashley.
Yep. Hi guys. Good evening. I'm Azri, UX designer in Aleph, and currently working in the content team with one of the recognized banks in Singapore. Definitely excited to be here with the rest of the speakers and share my thoughts from content design standpoint about design system. So thank you, Gerald and William, for inviting us. So over to you, man.
All right. So how can we collaborate to build how to create a design system that developers will love? I think Wu will answer this one.
Yeah, I guess design system in a way helps developers and designers to collaborate better. The reason why is design system helps us to understand something in a systematic way. So a lot of things would be described, represented in a way that anyone can understand easily. So for example, let's just take typography for example. Typography just focus on your font. Anything related to text, how things are rendered in a digital system. So that itself, when it's not like communicated in that manner, it's kind of hard for anyone to understand, because to someone it's just like a text. But behind it, there's a lot of details that go into how texts are rendered. So all the stuff are represented, as typography system, which is part of the design system. So I think that way helps, developers to collaborate well with designers, through design system. Yeah, I think that's one of the way. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. What do you think, Gerald? Anything else?
Yeah, where do you think is the best place to start, dev or design or both?
Where's the best place to start? You mean design system, right? I think it has to be in both ways, and design system will be consumed by either designers or developers or beyond that, right? But the thing is, we would have like high level, which high level wise it has to be consistent. But for designer, definitely we want to view the design system from a perspective that is closer to how you come up with screen design. As for engineers, I mean, the nature of how we use design system is basically coding. So from our perspective as an engineer, in our context, what we need to see is, we need a different set, but it is aligned to how design system works, right? Like, for example, typography, right? We have a set of perspectives that shows how to consume the typography, in our platform via codes. So I guess my answer is both. We will have to maintain in both ways, but just slightly with different perspective that suits your workflow. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. How about Ajri? How can we collaborate to build?
So I think from content design standpoint, right? Design systems standardize components such as like banners, cards, and anything that present content. So they can also present patterns that address like contextual kind of situations, such as like what to display in case of like empty states or error states. So now we are speaking of the topic of like how content designers can collaborate better, is to consider like how various content types will connect the dots for the different design components within the design system itself. So specifically for us, we want to know like what kind of design components are available to support this kind of content types and what design components might be needed. And besides content designers, I'm pretty sure there are also other areas of expertise that is needed as well. So in the next slide, William will share a bit more on who can contribute to the design system.
All right. So,
yeah, thanks, Wu and Asri. It's very interesting that the four of us are discussing about collaborations, but in the reality, there are still so many people needs to be involved in the design system team. They are wearing different hats. They have different set of responsibilities as well. All these people help further contribute to the advancement of the design system. From design ops, for example, who set up the process and the culture, bring standardizations in the team, and the way they operate, right? And content writer, Asri, so much about this, from motion designers, from DevOps also, to tester or quality engineers to researcher. The spectrum is so wide, and each disciplines, right, kind of bring a set of standards onto the table. They bring their own value, which all of this needs to be aligned with the team principles. When all of these people are working as the gatekeeper of the design system, right, then we need to talk about, we need to set some kind of a process already to be in place to build the trust in the team, to create a team bonding also, to leverage from each other work. Some recommended practice or activities that you can propose to the team, right, when you're setting up a design system team, is to have a knowledge exchange sessions. Some other people call it lunch and learn. Some other people call it like brown bag sessions. I mean, the idea, whatever you name it, the idea is to actually connect with each other and share like each domain of expertise, to other people. And daily stand-up and retrospective is, according to me, kind of a mandatory. Discuss it with the team on what sort of comfort level of engagement that your team want to go with. So these are just some ideas. If we have settled on the internal process within the design system team, it's time to extend it externally as well. This is where your socialization strategy might come into place already. You need to onboard people. You need to introduce them to the design system. You need to get them to use it. You need to get them to test it, give feedbacks and all that. You can have weekly update sessions with these people from the product teams. And then you can run a retrospective with them also, just to understand if they face any challenges or not. All right. My team did a community event, and each event is carefully curated and planned according to the mental model of the participant. Sometimes it can include like component news update. Sometimes it can be a plugin sharing. Sometimes it includes creative games as well, or even doing some sort of a live exercise of building the component. So there are a lot of activities that we can think of, right? A bit of a tips. Everybody can be new to the design system, even myself. I used to be, learning the design system from zero and feel a little bit intimidated also. So I can really relate to, those people who are new to new design tools, new processes. Most of the time, they will feel very intimidated by all of this because of the unfamiliarity. So don't jump at them. It's important to give them the reassurance that it is okay to feel whatever they are feeling. Right now, the design system team is there to help, and the help can only come from the feedback that they are giving to us.
Yeah, it's true, William. So in fact, there is this popular saying about design system being bring order from chaos.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we want is to create another mess for the product team lah. I will have to be honest with you. Our role is to put in place like structure, organization, and standardizations, and we really need to plan around that to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, right? And some factors that we need to consider when planning is that design system will grow as our product grows as well. We can start with style guide, and depending on our velocity, it can get to a point where we have mostly covered every aspect of design system documentation in 6 month time. You can see from the diagram, these are the maturity levels that is being set out there that we need to consider, when we are doing the planning as well. So always put yourself in the mindset that the design system is always growing and evolving. If you can go to the next slide, another aspect that we need to look at when planning is that it might also take some time for people, right, to be aware and get to a point of realizing that, okay, this is what they need actually. So people getting used to the design system, it really requires time, and finally trust it and use it wholeheartedly. At these different states, right, from being absent, being aware, being invested, being committed to being integrated, each of these states, the users will have different mental model and experience. They might give you different feedbacks at different stage. So just be ready with that. Different feedbacks might change your strategy altogether, right? For example, at the later stage, if we look at the stage of being committed or integrated, where people heavily invested in it already, you might find yourself receiving requests on, I want a new components. Can you quickly do it for me? Can you create it in your library? I want to use it already. Then are we ready to have that process in place to receive such requests? What are the criteria that we put in place? Are we taking all the requests and just accommodating it to them? Will it break our principles? All this require thought process and collaboration and discussion with your internal design team as well, right? Asri, I do want to ask you from a content perspective, right? At which stage do you see, content designers should be involved in this diagram?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Well, it's important to incorporate content even when building design system in the very beginning. So, for example, like content and micro copy, right, appear all over design system components. So, good to have it standardized early. So, if not, we will end up making decisions later on each time when we implement a particular component, which might waste time and effort lah. And a well-defined content strategy even helps to facilitate better design decisions because it gives the team like clear parameters for exactly when and how a copy will be used. And we don't want to scale the product with a shaky foundation. So thankfully, we can avoid all of these problems early by standardizing like content styling and copy consents and determining like exactly how we want to document these decisions for the whole entire team. So in the next discussion, William will bring us through a very interesting topic. So over to you, William.
Yeah, the next discussions, right, we've got this interesting question. So design system come first or concept designs, right? Maybe I just like do one round of discussions around this. Gerald, what do you think about it?
I mean, for me, I think it's supposed to be concept first. I'm not sure how we're going to build the design system without the very base of the design of the product. So, yeah, how about you, Boo?
I'm in favor for concept first because I think we have a choice to decide, we shouldn't be constrained at the beginning. I think we should allow ourselves the creativity to flow, right? Because there are a lot of factors, right? Like what William had shared earlier, there's a lot of work going behind research, to really understand what the user needs. So, I mean, if you have locked down with the design system, basically it's introducing a constraint in a way because design system would have defined how certain things could work or could not work. So I'm in favor for concept first, even though I myself an engineer that prefer to have the systematic way. But I think anything to come first, I would go for. I would in favor for concept first.
I mean, for me, ideally concept will come first. I agree with you both, as the concept determines the impression of the product, the look and feel, right? And the design system is just there to help capture or standardize or scale up the design components for extensive usage, for example. But I understand sometimes it might both run in parallel in certain use case, maybe due to like time constraint or decision from the business, And if this happens, I think what we can do, the team needs to have a tight grip on the process and communications to prevent friction or misalignment, distrust that can lead to disappointment at the end. So I think these are my 2 cents of advice. All right. So another misconceptions that we might hear a lot is that, okay, for the design system thing, you guys are just designing component and that's it. No. So design system is not just about designing and building. There are so many activities that goes behind it. For example, collaborating with the team, onboarding the users, engaging them, providing continuous support. Anything that you find missing, Gerald, from this list?
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with you on that one. But it's not just a component library, right? This full design system thing. It's actually more than that. Also, if I may, I think add on this one, I think the missing thing here is the testing part of the components. We always need to test and validate before we release it to the designers and developers to consume.
Spot on, Gerald. You see, always remember to validate it with the team to see what is missing from the list. So that's a nice spot, Gerald. Next, I will go through with you each and every activity briefly and share some tips. So let's start with the stage of selling. So this is considered to be one of the hardest activity according to some people, right? So at the stage of selling, always get visibility of your stakeholder motivations and goals and challenges as well. And build a winning presentations around that. Use research, if possible, to amplify it to further provide, unbiased proposals. So moving from selling, we can start talking about collaborations already. Collaborations actually requires a mindset of understanding, right? Having regular check-in, like I mentioned, run a retrospective. Sometimes all of this, we might need to put aside our personal egos also, just, to stay objective with what we are doing. Next, if we can move on to the onboarding stage. During the onboarding, we need to know what state of familiarity the users are in. Sometimes different people have different preferences of learning. Some people prefer to read a guidebook. Some people prefer to watch a video documentations. And some prefer to be guided on the site one by one. So just explore different methods of onboarding, getting people to learn, and see which one best fit your group of users. So that's my advice for the onboarding. Next is how can we engage the users, right? In every engagement, always take the chance to change your tone a little bit when it comes to communication. Create that excitement around the design system. So when you create excitement, naturally people will feel excited and have positive outlook about what you are presenting also. So in terms of support, right, if we can go to the next slide, give them the assurance, what the governance design team is always retrieving feedback, always be there to support. Things might not work for the users, then we have to ask why, what is the reasons behind why it's not working, analyze it, bring it back to the team, discuss, plan, and take action from there. And the last one would be the documentations, of course. This stage is often seen as an afterthought, but as we move step by step, it is critical to do this. This will help during the onboarding of the new joinees, for example. Everybody just refer to the same set of documentations to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Lastly, one thing that I want to communicate when it comes to planning is that you might be thinking, wow, there are so many things that I need to look at. It doesn't help me to narrow down. Now, then you have to think about which item to prioritize, which item can sit longer in the backlog. Prioritizations need to be aligned again with the roadmap, with the timeline, of course, with the business strategy. When it comes to building component library, right, we can always start from identifying which component has the higher usage. For example, the most common one would be button, text field, etc. If you are building a design system from established product, for example, consider doing the audit first. That's all. Hopefully, gives you a bit more idea of what kind of activities, what kind of effort that goes behind design system, what kind of processes that you should put in place. Next, I'll pass it to Gerald to bring us through the core activities, which is designing, building, and testing.
Okay, actually, it's on the fun part. So actually, after we've done all the research and planning, now the next question is what kind of design system? To define our own, we have to ask ourselves the right question. In what degree of consistency do we want across our product? So actually, we do have a few methods in building a design system. First one is the strict or loose. So basically, a strict system will have a comprehensive and detailed documentation and will have fully synchronized between design and development. So there will be a strict process for introducing a new pattern in the system. A strict system should be very broad in order to cover the majority of the cases the team may encounter. So the loose method will leave more space for experimentation. The system is here to provide a framework from the teams while preserving some freedom. Designers and developers are free to use it or not regarding their particular needs for their product. From my experience, we have to find the right balance actually between strictness and flexibility. A very strict system might repel designers and developers who will not want to use it. For me, I think it can be strict, but still have to be open space we still have to leave space for flexibility. At the end of the day, we are the one who's building it, so we have the control. The next method is modular. A modular system is made of interchangeable and reusable parts. It suits well for projects that have to scale quickly and that have to adapt to multiple user needs. This kind of system will particularly fit large-scale products as e-commerce, finance, and government websites, which uses a lot of variations. Another one is the integrated one. An integrated system focused on one unique context. It's also composed of parts, but these parts will not be interchangeable. This kind of system suits products that have very few repeating parts and that needs a strong and often changing art direction. And the next one will be decentralized and distributed. In a centralized model, one team is in charge of the system. It makes it evolve. This one is here to facilitate the work of the other teams and has the very close to them to be sure that the system cover most of their needs. So this model really have just one governing body to look into everything. The other one will be the distributed. in a distributed model, several people of several teams are in charge of the system. The adoption of the system is quicker because everyone feels involved, but it also needs team leader that will keep an overall version of it. I mean, in each case, I advise allowing everyone to still participate in making suggestions to improve the system in order to create a sense of membership. So, okay, so after we define what kind of design system we're going on, right? So now we go to the overall structure. There are a few key structures that we need to keep in mind in building a design system. So one is guiding principle, editorial guides, brand identity, UI patterns, and then codes. So for guiding principles, actually, how might we provide more guidance and be more inclusive to the contributors? That's where the guiding principle comes in. So design principles are the guiding sentences that helps the team to reach the purpose of the product. They help the teams to make meaningful decisions. And we go to the next one, which is editorial guidelines.
So having a content style guide is all about consistency. And what is content style guide got to do with in the design system itself? So a little brief overview of what content style guide is actually a document with guidelines, recommendations, and best practices for everyone who creates content for a project or a product. So the idea here is to give all contributors a common like a reference guide to help them create consistent content that speaks a language of the product and meets the intended business goals. So you guys might be thinking then, what about content design system then? So if we apply the main points of a design system to content itself, we get something a bit different than just a regular editorial guideline. So to qualify as a content design system, it should be more than just a tone and voice. It should also include reusable content elements, which is very important, so they can be used by writers and non-writers alike. So ideally, a content design system is also included in the design system itself, not as a separate guide only content designers are familiar with. So with that being said, I'll pass it back to Gerald to speak a bit more about brand identity.
Okay, so back to the brand identity. So the identity should be defined in line with the strategy and the objective of the brand. So we need to define all the color palettes, the icon, typography, and if there's like animation and sound as well, we should include. Then next will be the UI patterns. Okay, so components and patterns are part of the heart of the system. All the previously mentioned elements will help us to create them and deliver consistent experiences. We actually need to set guidelines and communicate with the members working on the design system. Each and everyone needs to be on the same page, otherwise it will be more messy in the long run. Once we lock down all these guiding principles, it's easier to teach the designer what and how to look for a component. So how do we name a component and make sure it's intuitive? William?
Okay, I think this is the most popular questions already. We've got like 3 to 4 people asking this question. I think if I can share from the experience that my team has gone through, right? We are currently using this so-called platform called component.gallery. You can go to https:/component.gallery. There is a website about this. So we use that as a point of reference and benchmark when it comes to naming the components. But of course, we can't always assume that every naming from there will work well for our users. When we are in doubt, we will do some kind of validations. You can use a quick polling to get them to vote on which one is the most intuitive to them, and this will help narrow down the options and the confusions as well. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
What about you,
Thanks
Gerald?
for that insights, William. So we're going next to one of the important part of building a UI patterns is naming layers and components. Actually, naming of layers is one of the hardest parts. So We use a standard set of names to help identify the layers in its purpose. We generally group components that are actually visually similar in shape as a single type of component and use properties to differentiate the different permutations. And then when a set of components are visually different, we may choose to break them into multiple components for ease findability. Naming components, we use camel keys for naming of components for ease of searching within assets. For example, block buttons, text fields, and page indicator. And then naming of properties, we use letter case for naming properties. Sorry. Within components for ease of reading via the variance panels. So next part will be the component naming convention. So for component naming convention is also one of the trickiest part. Component name should, or as much as possible, be a generic naming. By using common terms and simplification, it can ease the onboarding process and reduce the confusing among collaborations. So naming of components properties, we use the following list of properties for defining variants with each component. So for example, the component, we call it buttons, and then the class, we use classes to separate different variants of the similar components, which is example here, buttons, which is primary button, secondary buttons, or ghost button. And then background, we use the background property to differentiate the color changes for components that are generally designed for neutral background. So for example, by default or in image or on color. And then type, we use type to differentiate optional elements, layouts or different layouts are within a single component. So for example, the button has a text, it's just text, or button has an icon and a text. And then is it field or outline? And then we have the states. This one is to differentiate the visual difference resulting from user events or system events. So default, pressed, disabled, error. And then lastly is the selected. So we use this to define if a component has a Boolean value assigned to it. So for example, button yes, button no, or toggle on, toggle off. And then mapping all possible component variants. Actually, this one is important to really get all the requirements and expected behaviors from the product owners. Ask all the possible scenarios that the components will be not only on the present but in the future as well. So it will be easier for the engineer to identify and include all the elements in terms of coding. So for example, here we do kind of like separate the for dev or for engineer and then for the designers. For dev, we actually kind of like have it all the possible scenario in one component, so they actually know how to build it. And then for designer, we actually create dev like an actual variants for them to use. With that, it's easier to remove rather than adding especially when creating a component, because once you make it as a component, it's already kind of fixed. We can update it. We can update it, but it's going to be a huge possibility of instance breakage. The next one will be the mass update. This one is also very important and often being missed to inform everyone. Design system updates something. When design system team updates something, suddenly all the instances or screens has been updated, right? And all the designer gets into panic mode. The DS team needs to inform designers that we are updating certain components and whichever communication tool that's being used within the team for the changes before and after. We can inform them on the group chat before the meeting call update after, so we can describe in details what are the changes are. Actually, one of the best thing to do when doing design system is to create something kind of like a newsletter that includes what's been pushed, what's been updated, or the components, or if there is any issues, or even tips and tricks for the designer to know. With this, even designer might have the solutions for that issue, or even the engineers. So it's always good to share these kind of things and getting feedback. So for codes, I'll pass it to.
Yep. I guess code pretty much is like an implementation where it's a mean by itself for us, to build all the designs that we have on the system into reality, because we have to target it on platform. So I think the essence of it is we want to get it. Our job is to with design system, it helps us to understand what we're trying to build. With design system, it also make it easier because it's represented in a systematic way. Just for example, right? I mean, speaking of naming, I just want to revisit on a little bit on that. As a software engineers, when we want to implement something, we have to deal with a lot of methods naming as well. So, I mean, just sharing some tips like when it comes to user component, user interface components, I think you could use an approach like naming based on one. It could be the structural behavior. So, for example, you have components like, okay, maybe button is something that we can relate. It's something that something that you can push and press. Okay, and you might have seen like some components that is named after like navigation rail. So that rail itself gives you a hint that structurally how it behaves, and also give you a hint that you can slide it. Yeah. So I think that's one way that helps us to name the component, and of course it helps the the developers when it comes to coding. Right, we can't run away from naming the methods. So yep. So in a way, design systems kind of like sort that out early. So when it comes to coding, there's like lesser uncertainty, or messes. Like the kiosk is sorted out in an elegant way. Yeah.
So for this one, how do we make sure it works well for the team? How do we ensure quality for a team design system that is meant to continue to grow? I think for us, it's always good to do stress tests all the things that we've created. With that, we can actually see if there are still any issues and inconsistencies that needs to be addressed, any flows or breakage on the components, and for us to fix and enhance. Then everything is perfect before we publish and for the designer and dev to consume. How about on your side, William?
Okay, when we're talking about testing, I think we cannot run away from this. This is one of the ways for you to see how well your products performs, right? Your design system performs for the users. So in my experience, my team actually created some sort of like predefined template for the invitations, getting them to sign up for beta testing, right? Inviting them to use our design system, making sure that, their feedbacks is also being heard through multiple channels. So we have Slack channels to support their enquiries, for example. We also give them assurance that, it's okay to feel that you cannot complete the task, because the whole idea is actually to gain feedbacks, to observe their interaction, and to improve. There might be reasons why they are stuck or they cannot complete the task. It's totally fine. The whole idea is to move from there to have a better product. All right, now we have come to the last chapter of the sessions already, which is talking about what's next after you completed the design system. Well, I wouldn't use the word completed, after you crafted the design system. So what comes next, right? Then naturally we'll talk about maintenance already. People asking about what the lifespans of design system, because they have been in situations where product requirements actually outgrows the design system, and how often it needs to be upgraded. So these are the questions from the ground. In my perspective, to be completely honest, if you can go to the next slide, Gerald, design system is progressive initiative, in my opinion. Alongside with the product, we grow together with, there is no concrete lifespan, but maybe the methodology might change. Of course, sometimes from the design system side, it needs to be a little bit more, from the design system side, it needs a little bit more time, for us to conduct research and iron out the best agreed decisions. But I agree, sometimes things might not go the way you want to be. So if we can proceed to the next slide, there is this one nice quote that I like. So if you can go to the next slide. Yes. So this quote is very, it speaks the principles of design system, in my opinion, that it's never done. It's like art. Over time, it evolves, includes new components, includes new process, new content that's coming in. So always have the mindset of continuous improvement. Next slide. Yes, it might be common for us to also face the challenges internally and externally as well. So we have to anticipate this. Some of the most common potential backlashes that you might encounter, or like roadblocks that you might face, right? Coming from internal, maybe your team is unreliable, lose motivations on the way. Lack of active engagement with the product team can also lead to, losing interest and stuff like that. Unclear roadmap and visions, very common. On the external side, meanings when it comes to dealing with the product teams, maybe the design system track is being deprioritized, probably because there is a lack of budget or investment, right? Another situation is product outgrows the design system. So these are the landscape of challenges that team might face. All right, the last questions of the day on the next slide is that how might we measure the success of design system? Wu, you have any opinions on this?
I can't really come up with the metrics, but you can sense it that, like for example, the adoptions of design system, right? And it's especially clear when, let's say, a team that has built features, a digital experience without design system approach. And as compared to after, you could see really a huge difference in terms of the developer productivity. And one thing would be very clear is the quality, because design system is highly testable in many ways, from users, from the accuracy of the functionality. All these are tested. So that the qualities and productivities, I think, is one thing that you can feel it, sense it, yeah. But I'm not sure how it can be tracked, but you could totally feel it, sense it, and usually that's the reason why when design system is sold to a company, it will stay as a loyal customer of design system. Yeah.
Okay, that's the nice one, Wu. Would like to take a little bit more time on the questions that people ask, right? If they are faced with roadblocks, so where do I go? As I mentioned earlier, if you complete the whole process already and you feel that okay, I still have challenges that I need to solve and stuff like that, always go back to research where you started, right? Study, analyze, observe questions. There are a few aspects that you can continue to improve on. For example, collaboration between the team members. You might have difficulties in that. You might want to observe how people are using it in the long run. Do people actually break away from the guidelines that we have already set? How would developer translate the design into front-end UI? Is there any also break in terms of the guidelines? How do product teams respond to us proposing change, for example? How do designers or developers react when they hear, okay, your design is not as per our guidelines? So all this needs to be taken as part of the feedback to improve on the next phase of the design system. All right, the next topic before we conclude the session is let's talk a little bit about the future of design system, right? Something to look forward in the future. Can you imagine a future where a tool help to create the design system for you? It gives you a checklist. It helps you to keep track. It gives you analytic reports of the utilizations of the design system. Like I just imagined 10 years ago, creating a website might take about maybe a week or something. But now you have all the customizable template or even AI to help you generate, a website based on your needs, for example, within a few clicks away. I would say when I'm speaking
Yeah,
right
actually,
now.
in Figma, sorry, William.
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, actually, in Figma, kind of like analytics, but I think it's that comprehensive enough. But I think in the future, it might be kind of like more that we can get from the Figma analytics.
Yeah, I just imagine like maybe there might be a tool in the future where, it can scan the screen designs and produce components nicely for you already without having to involve, design system team to like thought of the variations, create names, for example.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Wu or Asri? Yeah, or Gerald, about the future of design system?
Yeah, actually, in terms of like automation, maybe in the future, we designers don't need anymore because of all this so
yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
We don't know like what's the next few years to come, right? In the 5-10 years ahead.
Yeah.
Even for content designers, we're not sure if there's going to be AI to help you create that particular copy that you need for a header that can detect all the different screens, right? So definitely something to look forward to. But I don't think it's something that we should be scared of because AI is built by a human beings. So human beings still need to have that kind of touch in the design system as well.
Yeah, I think myself, probably two things to look forward to. So future of design system is, I think one thing is that the scope of design system will be wider as we are moving to a future where we get to build more immersive digital experience. So that would mean design system would have to cover like, how things are built for certain experience. For example, immersive experience like, in a 3D world or, people can start hyping up metaverse, like, in a world that has lesser constraint as to physical world, right? But to build another world, of course, that requires a design system to make sure that user can still enjoy it. So I think that is something to look forward to. And another thing that I guess myself didn't really realize is the social aspect of design system, how much it has improved the social aspect of anyone that are involved in design system, where it makes things easier and where we can focus a lot on the actual work, right? So, like I think William and Gerald has mentioned that it's not just about UI components, but there are a lot of peripherals activities that goes on, like onboardings, documents. So all these are something that I'm looking forward to, like how we can improve that, to make design system in a way, a mentality that is good for us to build something good and sustainable.
That's good to hear everyone's outlook on the future on this. Before we conclude the
Very
sessions, interesting, right? Before we conclude the sessions, any last thoughts, any closing statement that you guys want to convey to the audience out there? Maybe let's go one round of opinions. Asri, what about you?
Yeah. Okay, so I think from content design standpoint, to start small. So building a style guide or a system is a process itself, and it will never be finished. And if it feels like a huge task to start from scratch, right? You don't have to. You can start with an existing style guide or system you like and use that as your base and adapting it as you go along. That's my my closing statement. And Wu, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think myself, I think it's a no-brainer that you should invest whatever it takes in design system. I think that's the go-to approach to build anything sustainable, and anything well. Yeah, that's my closing statement for today.
Gerald, how about you?
Okay, I think for me, simple. Each design system is unique on their own per project or per product. We will build based on the standards and design principles, and we enhance it from there to make it easier for everyone to onboard, understand, and use.
Totally agree with you guys. From my side, right, I think being systematic it's like one of the principles in design system, right? But also at the same time being fluid to make changes. So That is one of the principles also in design system. There is no one size fits all kind of rules for me in this department. And who knows, maybe in the next 5 years, like what Asri was talking just now, what we are discussing today might already seem traditional already, maybe in the next 5 years. We can follow certain guidelines, but we have to build our own way or path around the purpose of it. That's why it's important to, do your research, have faith in the process, hold on to the mindset of continuous iteration, and don't forget to have fun crafting with your team. All right. So everybody has gone through one round. We have almost come to the end of the presentation. I hope, from these conversations, right, it ignites the interest of people talking about design system within Aleph or even outside of the organizations. For those of you who are new to this, especially, and for advanced participants, I hope all your answers has been answered and it gives you a little bit more clarity on your challenges or your problems. There might be some questions on the YouTube chat that, are coming, and we don't have time to answer all of that, but no worries about that. Can go to the next slide. There is a little bit of initiative that we have set up. Upon these sessions, we have established a design system army within Aleph community, which contains about 14 plus members as of today. There are the people that know the design system very well and what we are talking about today. And we would like to take all your questions on the YouTube, right, back and see how we can answer it using different platforms instead. Besides that, can go to the next slide. There are more people. This active group will keep contributing to the knowledge of design system, by doing a bit more sharing, a bit more discussing, a bit more supporting, and of course, a bit more having fun also with design system as, it evolves. All right. So with this, Gerald and I would like to thank you for tuning in. Just a note here, this is the last academic sessions of the year. On behalf of the academy committee, we would like to express gratitude for sticking by with us. We will for sure, bring in, other interesting topic, in the next coming sessions to come in 2022. Happy Friday, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, speakers, and thank you for the audience for tuning from home.
Thanks, William, and thanks for the panelists, Wu and Azri, and happy Friday to everyone.
Happy Friday.